Guys, today we'll be looking at the Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit is actually the most famous gambit. It's most frequently used by professionals. Queen's Gambit is actually not considered as a gambit as white l- gives away sacrifices his pawn but gets back the pawn in like around two moves. So there are like three variations. Let's look at the first one. White moves pawn to d4. Black responds with pawn to d5, and out here white sacrifices his pawn by playing c4. The first variation that we are looking at is when black takes the pawn. So black takes the pawn. White. The main reason of sacrificing the pawn is so that the white can get control in the center. So white simply does e4, e3. By doing this, the bishop's attacking the pawn. So now if black wants to keep hold of his pawn advantage, he moves pawn to b5 and white moves pawn to a4 to get rid of this. So to keep the support, black moves pawn to c6, white simply takes the pawn, black takes the pawn too. Now black's in serious trouble because white can just move queen to f3. Now this attacking the rook, there's no way of saving it. The best move is knight to f6. You lose your knight. It's a check now, and black plays bishop to d7. Now your rook is supported by the queen, so the white queen just moves here. So now black gained a pawn in the starting, but now has lost a knight. So white's in a big advantage here. Let's look at the second variation. Okay, in the second variation, he takes the pawn 2 and same e3. Just that now black doesn't try supporting the pawn, because if he does that, eventually he loses his knight. So he just tries developing pieces by putting knight to f6, and then white takes the pawn. So now we can see that white's in a very strong position because the bishop's attacking this diagonal which is near the king, and the center is controlled by the white pawns, while black has just one knight developed. So this is a very strong position for white. So let's look at the last and final variation. So this is the most common variation played by professionals, is that they don't take the pawn, they support it. By doing this, if white takes it, black just takes it again, and it's normal. So then white moves knight to c3 to develop an attack, keep pressure on this, and black responds with knight to f6. It's supporting this and keeping pressure on this e4 spot with two supports and just one. White has just one to defend. Then white moves bishop to g5 to attack this because it's a very strong knight support, like controlling the square. And then white can either do pawn to c3 to support this is a more defensive way, and or it can move knight to c6. This is more offensive, it's attacking this pawn here, and then white can just respond with knight to f3. So now you keep like both black and white just keep developing and controlling the center. So this is the third variation, has the least, like is more equal on both sides. the first two variations that we have seen, we can see that white has a way bigger advantage than black. So if someone plays the queen's gambit with you, the best way to respond is using the third variation by not taking the c4 pawn, and this is the queen's gambit. So thank you for watching and subscribe for more videos.